Chapter 5 The Archer Named Aro. First Part. When his voice faded, Letitia stared at the grasslands in the distance. Despite the darkness of the song, she appeared bathed in light. That's the first song I heard other than my mother's. Do you like it? Not very much, she said, squeezing her hands in front of her chest. But it's a sad song. Sad. Greylancer felt a peculiar feeling come over him. The word he'd uttered was an emotion he'd not recalled feeling before. From whence had this emotion been born, and what had brought it on? He felt his consciousness drift terribly far away. And then a door flew open. A glittering chandelier, men and women dressed in evening attire, a party. But when? Then, his consciousness weaved and slipped deftly between the night dwellers and emerged into the veranda, where the marble floor reflected the moonlight. She stood in the crowd of partygoers milling about like shadows. Perhaps the white dress had been spun from moonlight. Her face was obscured from view, as her bare shoulders and back shimmered like water. Call out her name, Greylancer. He closed his eyes. He was at a ball. Yes, her name. Slowly the woman began to turn around. Her name escapes me, but if I glimpse her face... The distant sound of wheels rumbled from the depths of night. Page break indicated by a small cross. The noble's eyes fluttered open. Greylancer shot a hard look in the direction of the sound, but he could make out nothing more than waves of grass. Is something wrong? Letitia asked, sensing a change in her companion. A wagon approaches. After straining her ears toward the road, the girl said, I don't hear anything. A noble's ears were capable of picking up noises several kilometers away. Your companion comes this way. Huh? Too late. What? Something else is coming this way. It must have sniffed out the smell of blood. Do you know your way back to the road? Yes. Keep low and run. What is... A monster. It's coming straight at us from the west. Quickly. What about you? I'll manage. You should know I am immortal. You're talking like a noble. Come, we'll run together. Greylancer looked at the girl's desperate face and then down at his lower body. If the girl were somehow persuaded to reattach his body, he would regain his freedom in an instant. Go, he barked, the sound of a noble's roar. Page break indicated by a small cross. Now what? Muttered Greylancer. He did not appear to be in a terrible panic. A noble would rise again even after being devoured by a monster, but being torn to pieces without a fight was something his pride would not allow. Move. He threw his consciousness into his right hand. Move, damn it, move. Something bright and colorful thrashed through the grass and appeared before him. The stout 1-meter body and 8 legs stretching 10 meters were yellow with black speckles. Its shape was similar to that of a giant spider. It halted its advance and eyed Greylancer. A ghost spider. Damn that mareling. Allowing these behemoths to run loose. And he calls himself a human sympathizer. The surface of the spherical body that could be called neither the cephalothorax nor abdomen split open in the shape of a cross, and a face appeared out of the opening. It was the face of a middle-aged man, the last victim. Greylancer twisted his lips in amusement. feeding exclusively on humans. The monster was also called a human-faced spider because it reproduced the face of the last prey devoured. More spiders appeared on either side of the first, one with the face of a white-haired old woman, and the other with the face of a boy of 16 or 17. The living faces of the humans emanated a ghostly aura. "I'm tired of lying here. Come and get me." The words were spoken in provocation. After eyeing Greylancer suspiciously, the human faces slackened and broke into eerie smiles. The three arachnids quickly closed the 5-meter distance. The face of the middle-aged man opened its enormous mouth to bite off Greylancer's head, when something rained down from above. From where had they been shot? How had the bowman taken aim? What was but a blow tracing a beautiful arc downward transformed into 3 scarlet arrows, and skewered the spiders from the back to front. The spiders let out a hideous scream, and because of their screams and blood that poisoned the area, the prairie withered afterward. It would never grow another blade of grass within a 2-kilometer radius. Well, no. While the 3 spiders writhed in the throes of death, a Greylancer admired the dexterity of the archer lurking somewhere in the grass. Based on the angles of entry, the archer figured to be over 200 meters away. Sighting the spiders from that distance hardly seemed possible. Was it possible, then, to hit a target without seeing it? 3 of them, no less. At the same time, the human faces stole out of captivity, leaving a hole in the quivering bodies. 8 legs sprouted out of each of the faces and carried them into the tall grass in the blink of an eye. As soon as they disappeared, the creaking of a wagon drew closer. Within a minute, a wagon drawn by a headless cybernetic horse emerged from the road. Next to the young man holding the reins and bow sat Letitia. The boy jumped off the wagon and raced toward Greylancer, notching an arrow in his bow. But his feet carried him no further than 5 steps. He was not blind. The moment he mouthed the word noble, his consciousness was taken from him. Greylancer's eyes burned red. "Come," the greater noble said. The youth, bow still pulled ready, began to walk with slow, unsteady steps. Even as his will was taken from him, his subconscious was fighting tooth and nail to resist. When he finally stood next to where Greylancer lay, the noble commanded, "Bring my lower half and reattach it." The well-dressed young man must come from Letitia's adopted family, probably an older brother, given his rugged looks, and how he'd come to fetch Letitia. Above all, he was the human to whom Greylancer owed his life. The greater noble paid no mind to such trifles. He was an overlord, and aside from supplying him periodically with blood, the human boy was a worthless barnyard animal under his protection. Easing the tension in the bow, the boy rested the weapon by his feet. His awkward movements suggested the ongoing battle for his will. When Greylancer touched the legs at last, he smiled a satisfied smile. The boy had managed to carry out the frightful task. Sweat dripped from his brow. It was more the result of the struggle between his mind and will than of physical labor. "That will do," Greylancer nodded, his eyes glowing blood red. "Tell me your name." "R.O. Belson," answered the boy, mortified. Greylancer's smile grew wider. "How can a noble in broad daylight—" He gasped, his spirit not yet broken. Greylancer ignored him and asked, "How old are you?" 20. Such ruddy cheeks. How warm and sweet the blood flowing through that body must be. Greylancer was able to raise his right arm, and the dormant power began to reawaken in his now whole body. Come now. The right hand beckoned. The youth resisted as sweat dropped from his chin and dissolved in the dirt. His body bucked and bowed several times, until finally he was brought to his knees before the critter noble. Petty human. Greylancer grabbed the boy's black hair and wrenched his neck toward his chest so the carotid artery came before his eyes. Well now. The vampire's red lips opened before the rapidly ending day. Aro? The girl's voice forced Greylancer to pull away. Then he spotted Letitia approaching with the aid of her stick. His sinister intentions were shaken. Perhaps with the instinct of the blind, she came to a halt just short of the two men. I can sense the two of you are about here. Aro, are you here? Yeah. The boy pulled away from Greylancer and stood up, snatching the bow off the ground. He returned the arrow to the quiver on his back. I went through a painful experience, but it's over now. I'm glad, thank you. There are 3 dead ghost spiders here. Don't come any closer. You killed them, didn't you? You're so brave. It's nothing. Aro looked down at Greylancer and asked, Can you walk? I'll manage. Greylancer shot a glance at Letitia. Is he your true love? That's right. It was Aro that answered. Letitia could only blush and nod. This is a good man. I wish you a happy life. Thank you. We should go back to the wagon. It will be dark soon, said Aro. You can stay the night with us. That's a wonderful idea. Letitia smiled, suspecting nothing of the true nature of her current circumstance. This man is a troubadour, she informed Aro, as they walked together back to the wagon. Watching protectively over her every step, Aro nodded. Oh, so he's a bard. He even composed a lovely song for me. I wish you could have heard it. Not a chance. Aro, Letitia admonished. I'm sorry he always gets this way. So you are his adopted sister, said Greylancer, walking several paces in front of the couple. That's right, Aro answered back. That's right, Aro answered again, but we want to be together. That sounds fine. When that day comes, will you come to our wedding? Aro's eyes grew wide at Letitia's request. Now wait a minute. This man is a troubadour, said Letitia, with lovely songs to sing. Would you write a song like the one earlier for our wedding? I promise to send you an invitation. If your invitation should ever find me. Ah, Letitia gasped. She began again, sounding as if she might cry. What shall I do? How will we keep in touch? I know you can write me. Not every day, or once a week, once a month. And if you'll tell me where you are and where you're going next. Her face clouded again. No, that won't do. A troubadour travels daily. Perhaps you should write me once a week, if you don't mind. Greylancer didn't know why. Perhaps it was the way she had tacked on, if you don't mind. Whatever the reason, the noble let out a full-throated laugh. Very well, once a week then, if you desire to hear my song. Yes, I do. Listen to you, Aro muttered sullenly. So much more cheerful now. Second part, end.